Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Homecoming Season 1, Episode 10. It is the season finale, and it is called Stop. In hindsight, the first one should be called Play, or Start, maybe. Yeah, just Start. And this one should be called Stop, just to bookend it. You missed a beat there, Esmail. You missed a beat.
For shame.
But yes, and we did actually get a return of the old aspect ratio. We had the opposite moment where it became that aspect ratio. We had it close in one of the flashbacks.
That was clever, and that only works because we got that realization of what the ratio was for. Specific. Yeah, and it pays off really nicely with that.
Oh yeah, if we hadn't had that ratio all season and the flash forward stuff, and it just did it randomly here at the end, it'd be like, what the hell's it doing?
No, even if you know how for like most of the season, we just assumed that the ratio was just the time zone, right? The time period, rather than specifically being a story beat. And that wouldn't have worked as well, I don't think. But having it be, a plot point, and then okay, no, here's exactly why it's happening, just pays off nicely.
Yeah, it tells us that's the moment where she really forgets it. She really forgets everything there in that moment. And Craig rats her out, of course, as we saw happening, and Colin's beside himself. Chaos is happening. He's not happy. And I think the biggest twist here, of course, because there's not like a huge twist of what's really going on. That never actually happens.
No, this is maybe the most straightforward episode.
To a point, yeah. The only real twist we get is that there is no actual violent incident. That was almost a cover story to try and like get Colin out of trouble. Just bad things happened. Someone acted violently and she was fired. And that's not really what happened at all. We see Craig making the documents. She actually does a kind of a noble thing in the end. It's a weird way to go about doing a noble thing, but she makes Walter sick so that he can't go back on duty. He can't go on tour again. And then she quits, and she's taking the drug herself, of course, in the food. And we see more of that conversation, them talking about driving and settling down in a town, maybe getting a cabin by the woods, which all comes into play in the final 5-10 minutes of the show, which we'll talk about. But there was no like big shady, here's the big twist that was going to change what everything was about the whole time. That was never going to happen. And we were constantly talking about, is there more to this as we get closer to the end? And there wasn't. And I'm not disappointed by that though. Like I feel like
no, I think it was the very opening scene of this episode was where we left off last time with Colin, in the giving the presentation about it, and you had all these generals and stuff coming up to him being like, "Hey, I kind of wish this was a thing when I could have used it."
Yeah,
and that was enough to make the point and be worth what it's saying.
And we do hear from Colin when he's trying to like fight for his job later. He mentions that he repurposed the drug for management. That was the line he had in the scene when he was arguing with his former receptionist, who's now his boss. Do you know what I love about that scene? What I love about that scene is he thinks he's meeting his buddy Dan, who also works there, and he finds out slowly that Dan's been fired. And then he's sitting there and he's talking with his reception. He keeps saying, "Why are you asking all these questions? Go get me a coffee." He's being like a dick as he is. And there's this slow realization, it's specifically the moment where she mentions that she was at the Geist farm. The owner of the company, the CEO, the big shot. She was at his house, which is a farm. And he starts backtracking. Goes, I'm really happy for you. You got this new job. I support you 100%. Let's work this out.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments of this scene was one of the first interactions is when she asks him how the funeral was.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And he's like, oh, yeah, cover story. Thanks.
Yeah. I love her demeanor change, and I love the kind of evil music that's playing throughout this scene.
Yeah.
As he's realizing, and she's being kind of evil about it, and it makes me go back to like that phone call from, because we don't even get to see Carrasco this episode, but the phone call from his superior last episode. It seems to be just like a heads up, and now Geist are just cleaning house. It's like, no, these two idiots were responsible for this. We're going to use them as scapegoats, get rid of them, and that's how they're settling it. Geist as a company aren't going to have much of a fallout from this, from the sounds of it. Just Colin under the bus.
I think it's kind of how it goes. Colin's there suggesting it himself. It's like, yeah, that guy'll do.
Well, that's why you don't feel bad for him. A, you don't feel bad for him because he is a dick. Two, you don't feel bad for him because you've seen how he's tried to manipulate everything else. We've seen him try to do this to Heidi, essentially. It's impossible to, because it's essentially what goes around comes around. That is what his ending is.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're satisfying in that sense. But Heidi goes to Walter's mum, and she wants to tell him everything and tell her everything about what happened, why she did it, her part of it. And she's like, no, I don't want to forgive you. And she's like, oh, I don't want you to. I don't want forgiveness. I don't deserve
Convenient,
it.
isn't it?
Yeah. And she basically tells her to stay away from Walter. But she gets the idea. Heidi gets the idea of where he is, and she remembers the map. She goes and gets it out of her belongings because Walter gave it to her, thinking that he was going on tour again, and she can keep it until he gets back. And she just starts searching through all the towns on that area of the map. She starts searching through all those towns until she finds a place that has the hardware store, the cafe that you mentioned, the place that he knew he was looking for. And she looks around for a while. There's this montage, it's this overhead montage of the car driving, and it's going from split screen to split screen. The car's like going through the split screen, very stylized.
Very nice. Yeah.
And she eventually settles in this little town. But we just cut to Walter at one point. We don't stay with her until she finds something. We just she's frustrated, and we cut away to Walter, who's working on his porch, has this decking that he's got outside of his new house, this little cabin he's got. And he doesn't have a long enough power cable, so he drives into town. He goes to the hardware store and he buys a big extension, and he goes for some coffee. And it's when he gets into the little diner, he just turns around, and she's staring at him.
She's just sat there.
Just sat there, and he's like, "Are you okay?" You're just kind of staring at me, seemingly not remembering her. And they get to talking, and she's talking about why she's passing through, how she's looking for someone. She was meant to meet someone, but what wasn't exactly what she thought it was going to be or whatever. And he kind of goes along with the conversation and talks about his decking, and because she obviously guesses correctly. Oh, you've got a cabin, but by the lake.
Yeah, exactly. She gets it all.
And it's a sweet little scene. And I think the key thing here is Heidi does not make the choice to try and tell him who she is and what their history is. She makes the selfless choice, one could argue, not to interfere and interrupt his happiness, because he seems to have found peace.
Definitely. I think it's open to interpretation as to whether he has an inkling anyway.
The final moment implies that he maybe does remember.
It does, yeah. But it's just subtle enough, vague enough that maybe not, right?
Yeah, it's like, if you want to believe, because obviously the final moment is he says, "Oh, I have to get back to the house and get this finished by today." I keep everyone's making fun of me because I keep saying, "Oh, just one day left," and it keeps not getting finished. So he gets up and he leaves, and the song from the radio starts to bleed in, and she looks down at her cutlery, and the fork has been tilted. The knife and the spoon are completely aligned, but the fork is tilted, and this goes back to him, moving her pen on the table. And she looks up, and that's when the episode ends. And it's just this kind of if you want to believe that she ran out to that cabin afterwards into his arms and they lived happily ever after, if you want to believe that, believe that. If you want to believe that
it was just an instinct thing that he did, right? He just does that.
Is it just an example of he doesn't remember anything, but he just does this out of instinct, as you say, but almost muscle memory of just
that's what I was just about to suggest.
He would just do this on instinct, and that's a sign that he's still him. He's still really him. It's just she doesn't want to ruin that by bringing all this up, because that would mean having to remember the clinic, having to remember when things went bad, and everything else, and she doesn't want to do that to him. But if you want to believe that that he does just remember and they live happily ever after this, you can. I think it's more point to believe that she makes the choice not to be selfish. And
I think it works either way, though, because she still makes the choice not to be selfish and not to ruin it, and he remembers anyway. That still works. Doesn't undercut it. I mean, I don't really have a stake on either side. I like that it's open and you can kind of just choose whichever, right?
I mean, I like to be optimistic, so yeah, part of me does want to believe in the happy fairy tale ending where she runs out after him, but what I love about it is that I love that it set up these various elements, right? It set up the where he wanted to go, that's how she finds him. It set up the cutlery or the pen thing, her OCD, and it set up that he likes to play these jokes on her. So all of this is set up that so when she looks down and sees that fork is just tilted, it's like, oh, we get what that means immediately, or we get what that's maybe implying immediately. Does visually it just works in a second, and it's one of my favorite things about storytelling and building your story, is when you get to Act 3 of your story, which let's just say this is one big story, right? Which it is. This is Act 3. you should be able to convey information because you've set something up in the first 2 acts. And I feel like, to me, this was such a great example of this. Of this ending means something to us because we've watched the show. If you showed this episode to someone who's not watched the previous episodes, why you would, I don't know. But if you did, this final shot would mean nothing to them.
Oh, absolutely. And it's why, this whole concept where you're talking about here is why, for the most part, I prefer TV as a medium over film. Because you just have a bit more time to establish those things. Obviously, there are examples of film doing this masterfully as well.
Yeah, what's funny about this, though, is I actually compare this more to a movie, this one.
No, but I just mean on the runtime. This is, maybe 5 and a bit hours.
Oh, sure. I just mean, like, the story of this, the way it's executed, the way it's structured, it feels more like a movie to me. This feels like the final shot of a movie, the way it plays.
I agree in terms of all the structure. I'm talking purely on runtime. Purely on runtime, we have had more time to set this up and do this multiple times over the season. You do it a couple of times in the movie, don't get me wrong, but I think undeniably it happened more often because this was a TV show of.
Yeah, arguably it doesn't even need to be repeated. You can do it once if you set it up once properly, well enough. It'll still land at the end. But it being
such a running thing that he did, and it was such a key part of their relationship. Really, makes it work just that bit more.
Yeah, no, it was a touching moment, and I think what not surprised me necessarily, but the focus of this episode did end up being the heart and the characters. It wasn't the plot necessarily. The plot was mostly dealt with.
Yeah, it was a very low key episode.
Yeah, it was more about the ramifications and how she's going to deal with this now after the fact. Because I think it goes back to what his mother said to her, is that are you want to help him for him, or you want to help find him for you? Like, is that why you want to find him and talk to him? Is that about helping him, or is it just about making you feel better? And I think her making that choice to be selfless and not actually tell him everything, because she's got kind of what she needed, right? She sees that he's doing fine, she sees that he's happy, and that's arguably she still gets that out of it. So maybe it's not as selfless in a way, but once she had that, it was like, well, is there anything to this? Like, is telling him and bringing all this up and maybe triggering the memories, is that going to do anything other than maybe ruin what he's built here? So she makes the choice not to, because even the act of going to find him after the conversation with the mother was kind of like, well, this is not necessarily completely an innocent act, where the mother's pointed out this might just be for your own good. And you're going to go for... So it wasn't like I was rooting for her to find him in the sense of, like, when I'm rooting for two lovebirds to get together at the end of a movie and I'm like, no, I hope she finds him. It didn't have that feeling to it because it felt kind of selfish.
And that's the thing. We know from Heidi that even when she has the best of intentions, she can really just screw things up.
Yeah. So here's to her not screwing things up at the end.
Yeah. Makes a change. She finally learned.
It's a bit of growth. And maybe that self-awareness is also part of the story here as well.
Yeah, I will say on this episode, this might be one of my least favorite episodes, in that I really like all the character stuff. I really like all this final interaction, but I was missing the thriller elements of the show.
Yeah, it wasn't a tense episode like some of the recent ones have been.
It was all gone. There was nothing tense. There was no hints of that at all.
Yeah, I think this goes back to going back to episode 1 and saying, oh, we need like at least episode 2 to like get a good feeling of what the show is, and I think it's the same thing in the opposite end, where honestly this is one where I almost would recommend almost completely to just binge it and watch it as one thing, because it functions even though it has those good endings for the episodes, it functions less as individual parts that you watch and get a full thing out of, as opposed to just one. And that's maybe where the length of the 30-minute episodes help, is that binging this in a day is actually not that hard. This is actually
it's pretty feasible. Yeah.
It's a pretty feasible binge to do in a day. There's been many a half-hour show on Netflix or whatever that I've binged in one day just because it's easy. I don't even like some of the things I've binged on Netflix. Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt goes on, the theme tune's good and that's about it, but it's kept auto-playing, and then but before I know it, season 1's done. And I'm like, okay, I guess I watched all of season 1.
That's how it happens.
Yeah, I turned autoplay off though sometime last year, and my life's been completely different since. I don't get forced into anything that I don't want to. It's great.
I just like the implication here that Netflix was holding you at gunpoint. You're going to watch this. You haven't got the willpower to press stop.
You haven't got the willpower to get up and reach for the remote.
Yeah.
Damn it, Netflix, you call my bluff. But yeah, so yeah, it is one where, and this could be a critique if you want it to be, and it's a fair one. But it's a critique maybe in format, but it's not a critique in the actual enjoyment of the whole thing, right? It's one of those weird things where I hate ragging on a Netflix show or an Amazon show in this case for something like that when, well, yeah, but did you actually get the experience out of it you want? And I would say with this one, I did. Like, you know, if you look at the whole thing together and you think of the ups and downs, the tense moments, the filmmaking here, the acting there, the kind of the sweet ending that we got, which actually kind of played to how much we cared about these two characters by the end.
No, I agree with what you're saying. I think we have been reviewing these individually as episodes, though.
Yeah.
So I think this one feeling so different compared to all the rest just was a little off, you know, from where my expectations were for the show going into the final episode, and it just being so low key, kind of relaxed almost.
That's why I'm saying I wouldn't use that to dissuade anyone from watching the show. I would simply recommend watch it either in one big chunk or maybe in 2 or 3 parts.
I agree, yeah.
You know, watch 1 through 4, watch 5 through 7, then 8 through 10. Right, do it in bigger batches, and I think you'll have a really good memorable time.
No, I agree with that.
So, but no, I really like this episode. I like the show. I like the season.
It's not perfect. Things like Krasko always being so far behind. It feels like he never really got there until he was just had it explained to him at the end.
Yeah, he had kind of a sad story. I never really felt like he got his win.
No, and end with him being dealt with off camera, presumably.
Because we thought he was going to go back to the facility, right? Because at the end of his last bit of the episode, we thought him and Heidi were going back because it both ended with, like, she looked at the envelope and obviously it turns out she was actually thinking of going to see. It was making her think of Walter and his mum, and that's where she went. But he left, and it left his chair spinning. And I wonder if that was his happy ending. Is he's just leaving this job? You know what? He's realised that this is not fulfilling. just putting these complaints through.
In retrospect, it kind of is. It's his escape, and it's we know he was about to be dealt with from upper management in a very sinister way. That it's kind of he's getting out. He's kind of going to still be himself and alive, depending on how far they went.
Oh, you thought they were going to kill him?
I thought it was a possibility. I think no. My first suggestion was no, they're going to use the drug on him and just wipe his memory from it. But it wasn't out of the realms of possibility. I don't think.
Looking back at that final shot of him leaving his chair, though, I feel like no, he's away. He's got out. He's got out to be something more important than a cog.
Yeah.
Because that's what his life was. He hated it. He hated it was just a cog in the machine.
Yeah.
So he's off to do something else. Who knows what he's doing? He's off painting in the hillsides or something.
No, he's being a detective.
Oh yeah, he's a detective. Yeah, maybe he got a first for it. He's like, no, I liked investigating this. So I want to investigate.
Yeah.
He's in the police academy. He's a 45-year-old in the police academy. It's basically the plot of The Rookie starring Nathan Fillion on, was it ABC? I think it's ABC.
I think it was ABC. Yeah.
But and you thought I was going to get to Firefly and get to Joss Whedon and get to a Buffy reference here. I didn't even think about it.
I thought as soon as you brought that up, I was like, oh god, here we go.
It was only when I saw the fear in your face that I thought, I'm going to mention that I could have, but I didn't. I'm like Heidi in the final scene. I could have went there and I chose not to.
Remarkable restraint on your part.
But you knew it was there and a possibility, which makes you like Walter. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Pretty good show overall, though. Probably the best Amazon show that I've seen.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think it's this and then The Tick are my.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That I really like. Joe, I like about this. I like that this was essentially a little fairly low budget experimental exercise in like directing and storytelling. And I enjoyed that. I do not say that as a critique. One of my favorite things about Christopher Nolan's is his first student film, or well, it wasn't his first student film, but his first full film, which was essentially a bona fide student movie. Following is really rough and low budget and just inventive though. And it's like, oh, what did he do with no money? But I see over and over again what he can do with $200 million. I want to see what he can do with nothing.
Yeah, when it's just on pure talent.
And that's what I felt. I felt this was Sam Esmail experimenting with the directing. I feel like the writers were experimenting with their half-hour format.
Because Esmail never experiments in Mr. Robot, does he?
I never said that. I'm saying he's a man who likes to experiment. He's a mad scientist.
He is.
In fact, we started the last review with he's a madman.
He is. He is a crazy man who really loves aspect ratios almost as much as you.
In fact, I should probably on the next Mr. Robot poster, right when season 4 is like drumming up, because they're not shooting it yet, because he confirmed that on Twitter this week, and I was really upset.
Oh man, it's that far away.
They're still not shooting, so it's going to be fall 2019, which is really upsetting. Right?
It's like 2 years
since the last season, I know, but it's going to be the biggest, baddest, boldest season. On the poster for season 4, though, right, I want them to quote Speed, the movie Speed. There's a quote from Speed that I think is perfect for this. I just want it to be Mr. Robot, season 4, directed by Sam Esmail, and at the bottom, you're at the whim of a madman. Because that's what I feel like when I'm watching Sam Esmail directed stuff. I'm at the whim of a madman.
Yeah.
So
definitely at a point now though where if he's directing it, I'm interested.
Oh yeah,
kind of doesn't really matter what it is.
Oh yeah, whatever he's doing after Mr. Robot, I'm in. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the exception of maybe a musical. I'll hard out a musical.
No, you won't. You'll still have to experience it. You'll have to see what he does with a musical.
I know. I was getting shit on Twitter this week for being anti-musical in regards to the Lion King trailer, but I'll also save my thoughts because we're going to do a trailer talk middle of next week, and we'll be talking about it then. So I'll leave it for then. But I'll just say this: Mufasa had it coming. Anyway, so this has been Homecoming's finale. If you haven't checked it out, why are you watching a finale review? It's weird. But if you have just listened to our thoughts, go back and watch it. It's good. And like and subscribe, all that stuff. If you want to support the channel and the show and everything we do here, head over to patreon.com/MailedFuzzTV, and you can do it over there. Do you know what? Actually, thinking about it, this drug would be handy for getting to rewatch some of your favourite TV shows. Like wiping it from your mind.
Man, yeah.
And then just going back and watching it from the start again.
Imagine wiping Mr. Robot.
Yeah, Mr. Robot, Lost, anything with a good Mr. Twin Peaks would be a good one. Like, that's it. I'm looking forward to doing a rewatch of Twin Peaks, knowing everything, because I've not done that yet.
Yeah, you got to do that first, then you can wipe yourself.
Yes, it is. But yeah, so yeah, thank you very much for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla? So there's a post-credit scene, and Audrey, which is the Colin's receptionist, which name I remember because we just watched the scene literally right now, and
also we just mentioned Twin Peaks.
That's true. We did just mention Twin Peaks, and Colin is signing his statement, and he's like, I'm a team player
resignation
here. Yeah, I'm a team player. Will that be kept in bed? And she's like, yes. She looks very nervous though.
I really want to talk about the wording of that there.
Oh, go on.
He says, tell Geist, I'm doing this. Will Geist know that I'm doing this? Will he remember this? And she says, we will remember this.
We will keep that in mind. That was his exact phrase.
Keep that in mind. But it was we, not he will. It was we. Thought it was interesting.
Yeah, and he leaves the room. It's all very somber, and she looks very nervous. And then she pulls out something out of her bag, and
she starts shaking a little bit.
And it's a vial of presumably the Homecoming drug. But she puts it on her wrist. It's like a little.
Yeah, it says for lab use only, and it just like dabs onto her wrist.
Yeah, implying that she will be forgetting this, almost as if she's not actually had a promotion. She's just been told to play this out and then wipe herself, so that she won't know about it. Maybe it also ties into what he said about management using this for reasons.
Could be, yeah.
Do you know what? This is the only scene that implies to me there could be a season 2.
Yeah. Well, that, and maybe we could follow more of the threat on Carrasco.
We could. Maybe Carrasco would be like the main character season 2, I don't know. But to me, this feels like, there's a lot more story here, maybe. What's going on?
does, doesn't it? My mind was wondering, is like, is somehow Geist almost controlling her? The way she
Mm.
says, we, as if like she has the authority to say that on behalf of him, like, I am him almost.
Well, you're thinking
Um,
he's actually controlling her, like
I
it's
don't,
like management's inside her right now, controlling her.
no, not quite that.
Yeah, I wasn't getting that.
Hopefully, no, 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 no.
She was too
More,
scared about it. Like to me, this was more she was under orders because she was nervous.
yeah, yeah. I was thinking more like extreme manipulation
Mm.
like like that is like mental suggestion sort of stuff.
Yeah. Now it could just be a neat little Easter egg that's like, hey, this is implying what they're using the drug for now, and that could be it. That could be it, what we leave it at, and that's fine. But I could also see story potential for more stuff here, should they want to do more seasons.
Yeah, it was very interesting. It was only what, a minute long,
Yeah.
but
Intrigued.
very moody scene. After he leaves and she's sat there staring after she dabs her
You
wrists.
said you wanted Thriller back.
I did,
That's
and
that's
there
this
it
was
is.
kind of unnerving. It was like, oh, there's things going on,
Yeah, there it is.
creepiness, things happening. Colin's a dick. I thought she was going to give him the finger when he turned round. That's what I was expecting.